think now we're at that intriguing part where we've mentioned the word comparative market analysis a couple of times, or a CMA, and you might have been wondering what that is. It's a document, I think would be the smartest way to lay it out, in a document, which is the way that buyer's agents do it. We create a document called a CMA, and the comparative market analysis. And so what that actually means is you're comparing homes in the market and you're analysing them to see how the home you want to buy fits in with them, like a puzzle, to see, okay, how much is it worth? This one sold for that, this one sold for that, this one sold this price, this price. However, it's also important to notice, what's the market doing? So these have recently sold. Is the market slowing, or is the market getting hotter? And so you need to take that into account as well. So these all sold in the last 3 months. Is the market slowing, or should I be more competitive with my pricing because it's moving? And that's the gist of it. However, what we need to recognize is that not all homes are equal. You might be comparing apples with oranges. For example, the home you might want to buy might have a pool and you're comparing it with homes that don't. That's one obvious difference. Another difference is the block size. So you might be looking at a home that's less than 800 square metres, and yet some of the ones that sold recently were 400 square metres, which makes them considerably less than the home you're looking at. Or they might have been over 1,000 square metres, in which case they're priced higher. So it's about comparing apples with apples. So let's get into it. Now, on this page here, it says it's an important tool. And so you need to determine, how does this home compare to other homes on the market? And they're the ones that are for sale at the moment. Most importantly, it's homes that have recently sold in the same area, in the same type of street, the same sort of size block, the same type of home, like comparing a recently renovated home to a renovator's delight, for example, is obviously, there's a huge difference there. Don't rely on the CMA prepared by the sales agent. So quite often when you go to an open home, that you will be presented with a CMA that the sales agent has prepared. And that's really great. But what they've done is they've created that CMA based on what they want to sell the house for. And we'll be able to understand that as we look at it. In a hot market in Brisbane at the moment, quite often the CMA from the sales agent is accurate, because the market is moving. And so let's have a look at a little bit more about CMAs. So there are three key components that I just said. There's the comparables. So they're your star players in your CMA, and they're the homes that are similar to yours in terms of size, location, and features. For example, if you're buying a 3-bedroom house in a particular neighbourhood, you look at other 3-bedroom homes that sold recently in the same neighbourhood. And the more alike they are, the better. It's the market paid this much for that home, so it'll probably pay this much for this home, if they're the same. And also, like I said before, you've got to look at the market trends and then the property features. We need to have a look at the detail. So how good was the quality of that renovation? And so this is where it's also important to have a look at the amount of typical points that line up with an A-grade home and compare them that way, like the layout of the floor plan, the condition of the appliances, how old is the hot water system, the air conditioning unit. So comparing all of that to come up with an accurate assessment of the logical value of the home. So the process is you select your comparables first. So you'll want to gather a list of comparable properties. And this involves some research, looking at recent sales in your area that match the characteristics of the home that you want to purchase. So obviously going to realestate.com.au and having a look at recent sales. Then analysing that data. Next, you'll dig into the data and you'll look at the sale prices and how long those homes were on the market and their listing prices. So in a not so hot market, they might put a home at this price, but then it might be reduced later. So that's an interesting bit of data to note. And then adjust the values. So you have a look at the features and weigh up roughly how much each feature is worth to help you to adjust the price, the logical price of the value of the home that you're looking at. What to consider when conducting a CMA, I'll just break it down into a little bit more detail. And so the land size, and the land size is a significant contributor. You could be looking at the same identical home on two different blocks of land. This one's got a block of land that's twice the size of this one. And that will make a difference, obviously. The condition, so how recent were the renovations? Were they DIY renovations or were they by a reputable builder? And so street type, busy roads as opposed to a cul-de-sac, even a cul-de-sac as opposed to a home on a fairly quiet street that's right next to the roundabout. Nobody really wants to be right next to a roundabout if they can avoid it. The location. So when you're conducting a CMA, I love to say there's two choices you can make. You can say, I want it in the same suburb, okay? And so for many suburbs, just saying that you want the CMA in that, to choose homes from that particular suburb is good enough. However, there might be other suburbs where there are different aspects to that suburb, better pockets or neighbourhoods than others, in which case you might be able to say, well, I actually just want you to look at properties within a 1 kilometre radius of this property, as opposed to the whole suburb, and you can do that as well. And that when you go to, for example, realestate.com.au, and if you go to the map feature, you can then have a look at the sold homes as they lay out on the map. And that could be quite helpful for you. And then the sale date. So I wouldn't be looking at homes that sold a year ago, especially not in today's market, because, wow, haven't prices increased a lot over the last 12 months. And so I'd be selecting the most 6 months. If you can, I'd just be looking in the last 3 months of homes that are comparable to the one that you want to buy. And then the adjustments. Look, it's not rocket science, but when you first start to approach this, you could be thinking, oh, it's just so complicated. I'm no good at maths. Let me tell you, if I can do it, you can. So it's just a matter of, honestly, it can be a bit of a rule of thumb. And so you might have a look at the size difference. For example, if the comparable home is slightly larger, you might subtract, say, $30,000 from the value of the home that you're researching. Or maybe there is a feature difference. If the comparable home has a pool and the one you're looking at doesn't, you maybe subtract the estimated value of a pool, maybe $15,000. I know it costs a lot more than $15,000 to put in a pool. However, you need to rule of thumb it. So the home might be 40 years old and you're weighing up the value of that pool. Don't pay a lot of attention to the dollar figures that I've put here. We're just discussing how price adjustments would occur. The condition difference. If the comparable home is a newer roof, you'd consider the value of the new roof. Perhaps, I don't know, pick a number out of the air. How big is the roof on that home? Maybe $8,000. And then you'd see, well, that's changing the balance of how much the other home's worth. And additional features, so an ensuite, for example. Maybe the comparable home has 2 full bathrooms and the one you're looking at has 1 full bathroom and an extra toilet. So lots to weigh up there. And other factors that contribute to the value beyond these comparables is the market conditions, the economic factors. Property values are influenced by interest rates. We've just had a reduction of interest rates at the time of me recording this video. If interest rates get reduced, more people will be on the market looking to buy homes. Even unemployment rates, they will affect the local developments. So when a buyer's agent creates a CMA for one of their clients, we also look at local developments on a local and a broader level. So local developments might be that they're investing money into the local primary school and the government's invested $500,000 upgrading some area of that school. Or it might be that they're upgrading roads, or there might be developments locally that it's a block of units is about to be built right next door to the property that you're looking at because that's how it's zoned. So a buyer's agent will look for all of those things. Now, I know that in Module 4 we covered a lot of that. Sorry, Module 3, we covered a lot of that. And so I would encourage you, at the bottom of this it says, hot tip, save yourself heaps of time and ask your buyer's coach to run a CMA for you using their buyer's agent only subscription software, and it'll form an integral part of your home valuation. So what I'm saying to you now is I've just taught you how to run a CMA yourself, how to conduct one just by looking at realestate.com.au. What I'm now saying to you is because you're part of this program, you are welcome to contact me and ask me to supply you with a CMA of a property you're looking at. The only proviso that I'll tell you is that you'll need to narrow down the comparables yourself. The CMA I send you, let me take you through one right now that I will send you. So this is a CMA that I took up standby. So let me describe the CMA that I will send to you, should you ask me to. So this is for an address at 2 Kilcoman Street, The Gap. The front page of the CMA that I pull from my software says that it was built in 1980. It's a corner block and it's owner occupied. It is a 612 square metre block. It's got a 30-metre frontage. It's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and it doesn't mention the number of cars. That's fine. So if we move through this document, this is the cover page of the CMA that I will send to you. So the first thing it says is the price estimate. This has been generated by the software, okay? It happens to be fairly accurate. The software we use is quite accurate. However, you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. The next page, one helpful bit of information, is knowing what the property has sold for and how recently and how often the property has sold. So if you were looking at a property that had sold 6 times in the last 10 years, that would raise a bit of a red flag. You'd be wondering, why do people keep selling on and moving on? And you would want to get to the bottom of that. This is the aerial image of the property, and it really just gives you a bit of a snapshot. You can see that this is the home that we are looking at. Here is the bus stop, which is only 6 metres from the home. Here is a lovely council parkland frequented by, well, these are like little children's bicycle trails, frequented by families, and often some of the primary schools have their cross-country races. It's a good community park. Right across the road over here, that is the school oval. So there's a school right across the road. We've got parkland next door, bus stop here, school across the road. And a lot of the homes in this area are owner occupied and actually have been owned by the same people for a significant amount of time as well, that we learnt through our research. Great. So the next image, this is the zoning. So you can see in this particular location, everything's very pink, which is low density residential. So if you were purchasing a property, so this is the property that we are considering, if you were purchasing a property, say this one, and across the road was zoned differently, you'd need to investigate that, all right? And I know we covered that in more detail in Module 3. Okay. So this talks about the zoning for that particular property and a little bit more information about the fact that in that area, buildings can only be a maximum of 2 stories. And it's saying here, obviously we saw at the beginning there was no flooding known in this area. This is a misconception because at the front of this document, it said here, flooding not detected, right? And then we were here and it says no flooding known in this area. And this is why you need to do your own research. This is the flood map and this is the block. That to me is misleading as. Now, we purchased this home knowing that no water had ever entered the block, but for it to say no flooding known in this area, I honestly believe that that is misleading. Would you not say so? There's your flooding. If you'll notice, it's all over the school area, it's all over the park area, and it's up the roads mostly, okay? So I've actually seen this area in flood on Facebook and it looks a bit scary, but it's only on the road, it doesn't go into the homes. However, there will be other areas where it goes into homes, so you need to check that for yourself. If I send you a CMA, I'm relying on you to check this yourself. Okay, next. So this is the bushfire map. You can, there's no bushfire overlay on this block, but you can see up here and down here, there is some bushfire zoning nearby. That's fine. This is the biodiversity. So this is parkland that we've got in this area. That's a creek through there. So they've got parkland. And it's not affecting this area here. This is the heritage map, nothing of consequence. This is the contouring. So you can see that up here it's getting hillier than it is down here. All right, next page in this is the suburb median price and some more information about the suburb with a summary. Each time if I was to run this for you using the software I have, then this is what you would get. And this is pro buyer agent software. You can't, real estate agents don't use this and it's not available to the public. So you can see something interesting down here. The education sector is strong, with the government schools in the area having a high ICSEA percentile. So this particular suburb has got good schools, is what we're saying. So this is some sale price insights. So this standard CMA includes all of this information straight up. So you can see that there's been phenomenal growth in this suburb, as in many, many suburbs in Queensland recently. So that's interesting to note. Okay. Next, rentals. So it'll have information for you to peruse on rental insights. It'll have information on comparable sold properties. It says it found 15 properties with a median price of 1.13 million within 500 metres. I'm going to ask you to view all of this yourself. I will supply this report to you though, because it does provide you with so much information all in one document. Now, this is the comparable solds that it's come up with, okay? So let's have a look. What do we learn about comparables? It's got to be same block size. It's got to be same age. It's got to be same number of bedrooms. It's got to be similar stuff, right? So from this list that this software has pulled up for me, it's got this block size here, which I cannot imagine is very small. Can you see that? 162 square metres. That is a very small home. It's a villa inside a complex. Whereas this one here is more comparable. Now we can see the days that each property spent on the market. This one here was on this page, this one here is the shortest amount of time. This is in fact the property that I'm talking about, okay? I mean, this is, yeah, it sold ridiculously quickly. We had to be very quick with that one. That's the first page of the comparables. Now you can see this one here is considerably more expensive than this one here. There's 2 stories. See those stairs there? Sorry. But you need to make sure you're comparing apples with apples. Let's look at the next page. It's brought these ones up as well. Now, whilst they're similar block sizes and 5 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, the home we're looking at is 4 bedrooms, okay? This is 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. And it sold, it's only 550 metres away, and it sold for a much lower price. So I would be interested to see what that looked like inside. It might have been in its original condition for all we know. And so that's why you need to go to each of the properties and view them to make up your own mind. Next, comparable rental properties. Okay, so we're looking at rentals. If you were buying it and you thought maybe you'd rent it out. So it'll bring up some homes that are currently for rent in the same suburb. And you can see 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. That's the same, roughly the same type of home. And it's renting for $845 per week, whereas 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom is only $700 per week. Okay. Now, these are comparable for sale properties. So when we go back here, these ones were sold. You can see the red here. These ones are for rent, and these ones are for sale. So we don't have a price for these ones. This one actually just got sold, I happen to know. This one here got sold for $1,265, I believe. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. And it only just got sold like 3 days ago. That's because I just pulled this report just before I made this video. So now we're looking at comparables for sale. Not as good information. You're looking at comparable sold properties. It's bringing these up though, which is helpful if you're looking to buy. You want to have a look at what else is on the market. This is on the market. So this is how long these properties have been on the market. Since one here that sold, it's 11 days. It's very fast. 10 days. And if you 13 days. And then you see something that's a bit longer and you think 37 days. No, normally that's not all that long, but you wonder, well, why did that one take so long to sell? And let's carry on. This is an interesting, very interesting way to look at an area. And this is called a heat map. What we're looking at is the suburb median prices. So it's got the suburb that we're analysing flat, slap bang in the middle. And you can see the gap's median price is 1.286. And if you go to the places in yellow, as the colours pale off, they get less expensive. And then as the colours deepen in red, they get more expensive. So this is a heat map showing the median prices. Now, when we talk about the median price, it's not the average price. They get the highest price and the lowest price, and it's in the middle. Suburb percentage growth. Now we can see that the gap in the last 12 months has grown by 15.3%. Looking above the gap, at Ferny Grove, it's gone up by 19.8%. Ferny Grove is a cheaper area, and obviously people are moving out towards Ferny Grove because it's more affordable. Then we can have a look and see that whilst the gap grew by 15.3%, Brookfield grew by 23.5%. That's an interesting page to look at. Sales volume. This is the sale count over 12 months in a suburb, and it's the total number of properties that have sold in the suburb over the past 12 months. So here we see that the gap's been pretty active. 210 properties have sold in the gap, whereas you compare it to Brookfield, 19. However, we use our common sense and we say, well, Brookfield, it's more of a rural suburb. So then that would make us go, okay, well, let's compare it to a suburb that is of a comparable type of suburb. And so you can see that Inaugura, Barton, they're all red. And then as we look towards these greener colours, there's less sales. This is simply indicating that there's more homes for sale and more homes have been sold. This is the rental yield. So you can see that Gap is not really a suburb where you would buy it to make money from rent. Okay. There are better places to do that than the Gap. You might want to buy it to make money from capital growth. And that's good to see what the rental yields are. If we were to look at this map, we were looking for a place with better rental yields. There's over here in Fitzgibbon, you've got 4.2%. And Fitzgibbon's on the railway line as well. Brendale, 4.8%. Higher rental yields. Then we've got the suburb growth. Okay, this is what I was talking about. The growth in the Gap is 8.2%. And the growth in Fitzgibbon is only 6.6. So whilst it has a higher rental yield, we're looking at not a strong capital growth. Okay. And that's why I like the Gap as a suburb to invest in. It's got good capital growth. Gap's a great suburb. Why is it a great suburb? I'll just be very quick about this. To be honest with you, when you drive to the Gap, you're not driving through the Gap to get anywhere. The Gap is a destination. And to go beyond the Gap, you're going into the country. And so it's a safer suburb because it's not like a transit stop for people going elsewhere. Same with Upper Kedron. I like Upper Kedron as well. It's also the same sort of situation. People go to Upper Kedron to live. They don't go there to drive through it to get somewhere else. That's why I love both of those suburbs. They're safe. There you go. You can see the growth, capital growth. Social housing. All right, that's also known as housing commission. You see some suburbs have a higher density of social housing than others. Days on market. Okay, there you go. Days on market in Brookfield, 20. Days on market in the Gap, 22. These houses are selling quickly, very quickly. And in fact, look at these. Brisbane's just hot, okay? You go further out, it's taking people longer to sell their home. I've got a friend who's up at Cashmere, which is up here, and their home's been on the market for about 4 months now. It's just there's not the same amount of turnover. Market absorption is the rate at which available properties are sold in a specific area over a 12-month period, indicating the demand for properties in the area. Owner-occupier. This is a very good one. So you're having a look at properties that are green, and the greener they are, the more owners own their own home. Great. So you can have a look up here at Brookfield. 93.7% of the people who live there are owner-occupiers. Not so many people renting. Yet you go into places like Fitzgibbon, it's only 64%. Get into the city, 52%. Okay? So then we look at nearby development projects for this particular property that we're looking at. And it's saying that they've found 4 projects within 2 kilometres. On the final page, we have the development applications. It says that it's found 17 applications within 2 kilometres of this particular property. It's only showing these ones on the page. They are the closest development applications to the property that we are looking at. So obviously in Module 3, I taught you how to look up and research development applications yourself. This is an overview of the ones that are closest to this property. And that concludes me going through this CMA for you. I just wanted to really quickly show you this comparable sales report that was being handed out at the open home. So the CMA that I just took a long time to take you through, this is what is often handed out at an open home. And it's got comparable sales for this area, the Gap. And however, see the dates, 30th of April. So April, there's a June here and a June here. So April, for example, is May, June, July, August, September, October. We bought in October. So that information is already 6 months old. And then you've got a couple of Junes, July, August, September, October. 4 months, a lot changes in the prices in 4 months' time. If this home had been bought 4 months earlier, maybe it would have gone for less than it went for. But another trick you need to also pay attention to is the sales agent creates this document with these prices in it to influence you and your valuation of the home. So they're demonstrating here that the home is probably going to go for between 1.125 and then the bottom one, 1.255. Some agents could use this as a tactic to have you come in and think, oh, well, then I should be able to buy it for about 1.2. Fine. They're influencing you with this document potentially, depending upon the sales agent. That's all the more reason to do your own research, because this home actually sold for 1.32 million, which was higher than any of these prices under a multiple offers situation. So I really want to make it clear that you can feel free to send me an email with a property address on the email. So send it to admin@brisbanehomebuyers.com.au, and we will create that document that I just went through for you, and we will send it to you as is. And it has very comprehensive information on it. There are obviously things that you will then, because of the information you learned in Module 3 and Module 4, you will then want to just dig a little bit deeper into some of the data that's presented in that report. But it is a great sound start for you if you want to conduct a CMA and see a lot of the analysis for that particular home in one document.